Fluffy bunny, right? Open a 13th century manuscript and find a rabbit in armor, sword raised. This wasn't a joke. Medieval Europe was genuinely terrified of rabbits. The earliest known example? The Rutland Psalter, around 1260. A rabbit blowing a trumpet, leading an army of animals. Why? Because rabbits symbolized chaos, lust, and heresy. They weren't cute, they were a warning. What were these strange marginal doodles? They were drolleries, a genre of marginal art from 1250 to 1400. Rabbits fighting knights weren't jokes. They subverted the natural order, turning the world upside down. The Rutland Psalter, the earliest known image of a rabbit attacking a human. A rabbit stands over a fallen knight, weapon raised. Then, in the Smithfield Decretals, a rabbit hunts with a bow, part of a pattern. Medieval bestiaries described rabbits as timid yet prolific, allegorizing them as heretics who hide in holes, undermining faith. A rabbit defeating a knight warns, even the weakest can topple the powerful if chaos reigns. Why did rabbits symbolize lust? Medieval bestiaries called them timid but prolific, code for dangerously lusty. A female could produce 40 offspring a year. That rapid breeding alarmed them. It symbolized sin. Bestiaries also linked rabbits to heretics, creatures that hide in holes and undermine faith. Coney became a slur for a loose woman, thanks to Chaucer. The rabbit was a walking moral panic. Ever heard mad as a March Hare? That's medieval, from John Haywood's 1546 proverb collection. People saw hares go berserk during mating season and thought, this animal is unhinged. Between lust, heresy, and madness, the rabbit had a serious PR problem. Rabbits weren't just symbols. They were a real economic threat. Introduced by Normans for fur and meat, they bred like rabbits. A single female could produce 40 offspring a year. Escaped warrens, destroyed crops, caused famine, and became the medieval farmer's worst nightmare. But here's the catch. Rabbit warrens were valuable assets, guarded by law. You couldn't just kill them. Wild rabbits burrowed, undermined fields, and multiplied faster than you could say famine. Their breeding made them profitable, but also a menace. Could a rabbit be more than a pest? Medieval folklore saw them as active agents of evil. They were believed to be witches' familiars, shapeshifters that slipped into a witch's service. A rabbit wasn't just a pest, it was a spy for the devil. So when you see a rabbit in a manuscript, it's not just a joke or a symbol, it's a supernatural threat. The same creature that could curse your crops could also curse your soul. Medieval people were terrified of what rabbits might be hiding. In a world rigidly structured by class, a rabbit defeating a knight was the ultimate nightmare, the bottom rising up. These drolleries were a mirror held up to a society terrified that the world might flip upside down. The rabbit wasn't just a pest, it was a rebel. In every manuscript, a rabbit armed with a bow or a sword warned, if the natural order breaks, even the weakest can topple the mighty. That fear haunts our imagination still. The medieval rabbit was a nightmare. Lustful heretic, economic pest, witch's spy. That fear didn't die, it just got funny. In 1975, Monty Python gave us the killer rabbit of Caerbannog. It's a joke, but it works because the original terror is still buried in our cultural memory. But rabbits also appeared in secular art, like the Manesse Codex, where a rabbit sits on a lady's lap. This wasn't cute. It was a symbol of lust. Courtly love was already dangerous, and the rabbit warned that desire could lead to sin. Even romance had a dark side. So the rabbit was a hunter in art, but real rabbits were hunted. In the Livre de la Chasse, rabbits are shown fleeing hounds. Yet the drolleries flipped this. The hunted became the hunter. That reversal was deeply unsettling. It suggested that nature itself could rebel. But the rabbit's association with the devil went deeper. In the Hours of Catherine of Cleves, a rabbit is shown riding a snail, another medieval symbol of sin. The snail represented sloth, and the rabbit riding it showed how sin multiplies. Evil was always on the move. Even the clergy weren't safe from rabbit mockery. In some drolleries, a rabbit wears a bishop's mitre and preaches to a congregation of ducks. This satirized corrupt church officials. The rabbit, symbol of heresy, now led the flock astray. It was a biting critique of religious hypocrisy. But rabbits weren't always evil. they were also tricksters. In the Roman de Renard, the rabbit plays clever pranks on the wolf. This folk tradition painted the rabbit as cunning and subversive. It could outsmart the powerful. That made it both admirable and dangerous. Rabbits even appeared in alchemical texts. In the Splendor Solis, a rabbit symbolizes the volatile spirit needed for transformation. Alchemists saw the rabbit's energy as essential for turning base metals into gold. But that energy was also chaotic. Too much could ruin the work. Medieval astronomy also linked rabbits to the moon. In many cultures, the moon's craters were seen as a rabbit. In Europe, this lunar rabbit was associated with changeability and madness. The moon's phases mirrored the rabbit's unpredictable nature. It was a celestial troublemaker. But rabbits weren't just symbols. They were used in medicine. Medieval physicians prescribed rabbit broth for fevers and rabbit fur for skin ailments. Yet the animal's ambiguous nature meant it could also carry disease. Handling a rabbit was a risk. It was both cure and curse. During the Black Death, rabbits were seen as carriers of pestilence. Their burrows were thought to release miasmas that spread disease. In some towns, rabbit warrens were destroyed to stop the plague. The rabbit became a scapegoat for a disaster no one understood. But the ultimate fear was the rabbit's revenge. In the Rutland Psalter, a rabbit hangs a man from a gallows. This was the world turned upside down with a vengeance. The rabbit wasn't just subverting order, it was punishing humanity. That image haunted medieval minds. But the rabbit's threat was so real, it entered the legal system. In 13th century England, rabbit warrens were protected by law, but wild rabbits were declared pests. Landlords could be fined if rabbits from their warrens damaged neighbors' crops. This legal tension showed how rabbits blurred the line between property and plague. Rabbits even hopped into everyday speech. The phrase, "to breed like rabbits," comes from this era. But there were darker sayings too. To run with the hare and hunt with the hounds meant being two-faced, and to start a hare meant stirring up trouble. The rabbit was woven into the language of suspicion. Churches weren't safe from rabbit imagery either. In the Misericords of Carlisle Cathedral, a rabbit is carved riding a snail. These hidden carvings under choir seats were meant to remind worshippers of sin lurking even in holy places. The rabbit was a warning that evil could hide anywhere. Even noble families used rabbits in their coats of arms. The Conyers family of England had 3 rabbits on their shield. But this wasn't a cute emblem, it was a statement of power over chaos. Displaying a rabbit meant you could control the uncontrollable. It was a boast of dominance over nature's most unruly creature. So the medieval rabbit was many things. A symbol of lust, heresy, economic ruin, and supernatural evil. But its legacy lives on. From Alice in Wonderland's White Rabbit to Bugs Bunny's Trickster, the rabbit still carries that mix of charm and chaos. Next time you see a rabbit, remember, it's not just cute. It's a survivor of 1,000 years of fear. Next time you see a medieval rabbit, don't just laugh. Remember, it symbolized chaos, heresy, and a world turned upside down. Maybe they were right to be scared. If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe for more history you never knew you needed. See you next time.